All right, so now let's go and talk about some of the functions available to us and how to use the important subgroup functions. I'm going to go first again. So I spoke kind of we love to order things in order of importance. Let's go start with the people manager. So if we head over to the people tab of the control panel and we jump into the people manager, the first thing we're going to see is this kind of search box and a handful of buttons over on the right hand side. When it comes to searching for members, you'll notice there's already going to be a kind of like filter value set up for you. This is what we call our default search. So our default search is going to be searching for our members. You have the option to look for non-members that have been assigned to your subgroup. So we do have the option to store information about people who are not members and who don't have the ability to log in. Or you can even search for both. You can say, I want my search results to contain both members and non-members. The default is going to be set to members. For member status, the default search is going to include both active and expired. The expired status here should be irrelevant. Serra International members do not expire. It doesn't mean you have to come in here and uncheck it. It shouldn't matter because your members aren't going to be expired anyway. It does include active, and a vast majority of your search should be about active members. So this should contain everyone you're looking for. There is a status called dropped, and if you have a member who has become inactive and you need to remove them from your chapter, this is what you would set them to. This is the option, and I'll go through how to change them to the drop status. So that's our status option. The next option for our search is going to be by last name. You'll notice it is already pre-filled as blank, and we can leave it that way. If we just want to see a list of all of our active members, we actually don't need to change our filter at all. We can just land on our people manager and hit the search button. So if we do that, it's just going to show us all of our active members. And we can see here, we've got a list of all of our Chicago members as shown. Um, and we can see, here's all of our active members. You'll see a lot of kind of like cursory information once we search. So we'll see their member number within Serra International. You'll see their full name. In parentheses here, you'll see their username. So if someone forgets their username, you can actually just see it right here. If someone forgets their password, I'll talk about how you can help them get their password back. We do not show password or even offer a password to any administrators. Even top level administrators don't have access to passwords. Even I, a Club Express admin, don't have access to passwords. Those are completely private and encrypted, so we don't ever give a way to share that. If you have to help someone get their password back, the way you would do that is by giving them a new temporary password. And I'll show you how to do that in just a few minutes. There is an envelope here. You'll see it might be missing for certain members. So we'll see Debbie member is a test member that we set up in our last training. And Debbie doesn't have an email. So you'll notice that the envelope icon is missing. If you see the envelope, that means that person has an email attached to it. And that's just a hyperlink to their email address. So if you want to send a single member an email, you can click on that envelope. It will not take you to the Club Express emailing module. What it'll do is, because it's a hyperlink, whatever device you're on, it'll open up the default email manager. So if I were to click on that for, say Jim here, it would open up Outlook for me because I'm on a PC and I use Outlook. So it'll open Outlook and begin crafting email to that person. If I'm on an iPhone, it might open the mail app, so on and so forth with whatever device you're on. In the next column over, we'll see their membership type and their membership status. So you'll see some people are set to TBD. That is a membership type that is most likely going to be phased out. It seems like they'll be changed to what we would call a non-member. And so we'll go over how to change them to a non-member in just a second here. But there's also an option for if you see member and you'll see active. So below their member type, you'll see their membership status. So again, up here, member status, we're looking at active. If we needed to freeze or drop a member or remove a member, this is the button we would use to do it. So if we need to change a member's status, we can actually click on their status right here. So here's Michael. That's one of my coworkers, and I can kind of use him as a guinea pig. If we click on active here for Michael, we'll see the option. We have three options available to us. We have freeze, drop, and expire. As a note, we should not, as club administrators, use the expire option. Serra International members do not expire. If you expire someone, they would get a notice letting them know their membership is expired. And if they try to log in, it'll ask them to renew. That whole process is irrelevant to Serra International. So if you're trying to remove a member or mark a member as inactive, the option to choose is dropped. So you'd select dropped. There's a number of reasons it's going to ask you why this person is being dropped. There's anything from, a member has passed away, they have a duplicate account, they have, it was an admin error. There's a number of options. Maybe they moved out of your chapter. There's a lot of different options here, and ultimately, if you don't see it on the list, you can just list it as unknown. So there's not a requirement to fill in a very specific reason. You can leave it as unknown if necessary. And then there's the options of what to do with the transactions outstanding for a member. So if they have, event transactions or something like that, you can choose what you want to do with that information. You can choose to delete it. So if a member, let's say passes away and need to remove them, obviously we're not going to be collecting those funds from that member, so we can choose to delete them. In the case where we have a duplicate member, so let's say Michael accidentally set up two accounts, we need to remove one of them, we would drop the duplicate account and choose duplicate as our reason, and we could choose to move those transactions. So, on one account he has an open transaction, on the other he doesn't. We need to move that transaction from one account to another. We can actually choose to move it, and we can come in here and we can say, I want to select a member, and we would go in and we would find, obviously we don't have two Michaels set up currently, so I'm not going to find another Michael, but I could come in here and I could search for Michael, and it would go find that member and move that over to that person. And then finally, there's the do not change transaction. So you can actually have a dropped member with an outstanding transaction. So if you have a member who leaves the organization and they owe for an event they attended or something, you can leave that transaction as still pending on their account. And if they were to send you a check, you can still go and find a dropped member and mark that transaction as paid. And I'll show you how to do that as well. Once we drop a member, so let's say we're going to drop for just admin error. We'll say admin error, Michael shouldn't be here. I'm not going to change any transactions, and I'll save. You'll notice Michael drops off the list here. So now, because I'm searching for active members and Michael is no longer active, he disappears from our list. But if we change our search, we come over here and say, I actually just want to go look for my dropped members, and I search, now I can see here's Michael again. And I can actually come in here and I can do a number of things. I can click on dropped again, and I have two options available to me. I have the option to reinstate Michael. I also have the option to convert Michael to a non-member. So if Michael was, let's say, our TBD membership, which is supposed to be moving over to non-member accounts, so we don't want Michael to be in the system, we can say convert to a non-member and save. I'm not going to remove Michael's account just yet because we need it, but it would move it to a non-member. It would retain the affiliation with our club. So it would still be a Chicago quote unquote non-member. But it would change them to a non-member of the organization. Let's go ahead and reinstate Michael. I'll save this option. You'll see he drops back off the list because right now I'm searching for dropped members. If I change back to searching for active, because I reinstated Michael, we've got him back set to active. Let's see. So someone asked if a member is set to frozen. So if we freeze Michael here and save, when someone is frozen, they're actually treated the same way a dropped member is treated. So they're not going to show up in your database. They're not going to show up in your member directory. They're not going to show up in your email list either. So frozen members will not get emails or anything like that. If they're frozen, it's treating them like they're not a member. Only active members are going to get those information. And then we can repeat that same process we did with dropped. We can go in here and select frozen as our type. We'll see Michael is here and frozen. I can choose to reinstate and go back. We can go back and find Michael again. So that's how we kind of control, if a member needs to be dropped or removed. You should note when it comes to dropping a member, you'll notice here we've got options for people in the next column over. We're looking at primarily, oops, that was a primarily primary. We're looking at primary members right now. You'll notice there are also secondary members. So that is someone who has a membership, maybe it's a spouse or a family member, and their memberships are connected. If you have a secondary member and you drop the secondary's membership is connected to their primary. So in this case, if we look at Mary here, and I'll show you how I did this in just a second, but let's say that's for Jim. So it's Jim and Mary. So Jim here is the primary, and I can actually see by clicking on this icon over here, I'll go through all these icons. I can see Jim's secondary is Mary. If I were to drop Jim, if I chose this option and saved, it would also drop Mary. So keep in mind when you are going into drop a member or to freeze a member or anything of that sort, anything you do to the primaries account will also take effect on the secondary account. So very important to keep that in mind. If you want to drop a member, let's say a secondary member is staying in your organization, but your primary member is not, you have the option to, and there's a couple ways to kind of achieve this. We can come over here to Mary and we can click on the active option. When I click on active for Mary, who's a secondary, the only option I get is promote to full member. And if I do that, it will disconnect Mary from Jim. Now I can reconnect Mary again if I want to. I can come in here and I can go up to my member options. So this is the first time we'll be taking a look at these buttons up here. Under member options, there's a level changes control. And I can come in here and one of the options, we'll go through a couple of these options really briefly, but one of the options is to link a solo member. So when I say solo, that means a primary member that doesn't have any secondaries. And I want to reconnect Mary. So I can come in here and I'll say it's Colantino. That's how you say that, I think. And I can choose which members I want to connect together. So I can come in here for my member and I'll select, there we go, Mary Jo. So now I'm connecting Mary Jo and I need to choose what primary I'm connecting Mary Jo to. And I'll search for Valentino again. And there's Jim. So now I've selected to link the solo Mary to Jim, and I can make that save. And now I'm back to Mary being a secondary to Joe. So that is that process. Again, if I wanted to drop Joe or Jim here for some reason, instead of just dropping, I want to make sure that Jim doesn't have any secondaries. If I go over again, the icon is this little double person with a chain link. That icon will only show up for a user that has secondaries. And if I click on it, we'll see secondary members, Mary Jo. So if I see that icon there, we know this person has a secondary membership and we need to kind of disconnect them before deleting them. If both members, let's say, left the organization and we want to get rid of both of them, we can pretty easily do that just by dropping Joe and it would drop both of them at the same time. So it can occasionally be useful to drop them without separating them, but you usually do want to do it together.